After months of knowing him, I asked him his name. Now the narrator is very familiar with Sahib and his friends. So one day she asked Sahib what his name was. Sahib-e-Alam, he announces that his name is Sahib-e-Alam. He does not know what it means. Perhaps Sahib does not know the meaning of his name. If he knew its meaning, the meaning of Sahib-e-Alam is Lord of the Universe, he would have a hard time believing it. So what is ironical about Sahib's name? Ironical is that his name is Sahib-e-Alam, which means Lord of the Universe, but in fact he is only a rag picker. This is ironical about his name. Unaware of what his name represents, Sahib, he roams the streets with his friends who are an army of barefoot boys. Barefoot boys, the boys who do not wear any chappals, the boys who appear like the morning birds and disappear at noon. Over the months, I have come to recognize each of them. Narrator says, within months, I have come to recognize each of the boys. Why aren't you wearing chappals? I ask one. So one day the narrator asks one of the boys why he is not wearing chappals. My mother did not bring them down from the shelf, he answers simply. This boy, he answers very simply that his mother had kept the chappals up on the shelf and he has not brought them down. Even if she did, he will throw them off, adds another, who is wearing shoes that do not match. Another boy adds to it, even if his mother takes the chappals down, he is not going to wear them. He will throw them off. The second boy, he is wearing shoes that do not match. Mean he is wearing two different shoes in his feet. When the narrator, she comments on it, that why he is wearing two different shoes, he shuffles his feet and says nothing. I want shoes, says a third boy who has never owned a pair all his life. The third boy, he says, I want shoes because throughout his life he had never owned even a pair of shoes. Traveling across the country, I have seen children walking barefoot in cities, on village roads. Narrator is widely traveled. She is a social worker. She says traveling across the country, she had seen children walking barefoot. She had seen such barefoot children in cities and on the village roads. It is not lack of money, but a tradition to stay barefoot is one explanation. So when the narrator asks the people the reason why they are not wearing chappals, they only say that it is their tradition. It is not the lack of money, but a tradition to stay barefoot. I wonder, the narrator says that she wonders if this is only an excuse to explain away a perpetual, a continuous state of poverty. But this explanation, it seems quite hollow to the narrator. She believes that it is only an explanation, it is only an excuse to hide their continuous state of poverty. I remember a story a man from Udupi once told me. The narrator says that she is remembered of the story that a man from a place, Udupi, had once told her. As a young boy, he would go to school past an old temple where his father was a priest. So the man from Udupi, he told the narrator that when he was a young boy, he would go to the school past an old temple. In the temple, his father was a priest. He would stop briefly at the temple and pray for a pair of shoes. So this young boy, he would stop at the temple and pray for a pair of shoes. 30 years later, the narrator, she visited the town of that boy and that temple, which was now drowned in an air of desolation. So 30 years later, when the narrator visited the town of that boy and the temple was now no more. It was now drowned in an air of desolation. In the backyard of the temple, where lived the new priest, there were red and white plastic chairs. A young boy dressed in a grey uniform, wearing socks and shoes, he arrived panting, breathing heavily, and he threw his school bag on a folding bed. So another boy, a young boy, who was dressed in a grey uniform, who was wearing socks and shoes, he came. He was breathing heavily. Looking at the boy, I remembered the prayer. The narrator, she says that she was reminded of the prayer another boy had made to the goddess when he had finally got a pair of shoes. This was, "Let me never lose them." And the goddess had granted his prayer. Young boys like the son of the priest now wore shoes, but many others like the rag pickers in my neighborhood, they remain shoeless. So the crux of the story is that how people, they pray to God, they pray, "Oh God, give us a pair of shoes." And when they finally get one, how do they pray to the God that may they never lose their shoes? So this story very clearly suggests that staying barefoot has nothing to do with tradition. It in fact is the poverty that they are not able to afford shoes.